Have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? When I was trying to get this podcast off the ground, I had a lot of questions. How do I record an episode? How do I get my show into all the apps people like to listen? How do I make money from my podcast? The answer to every one of these questions is really simple. Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, distributing your podcast. Best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And now, Anchor can match you with great sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast. That means you get paid to podcast right away. In fact, that's what I'm doing right now by reading this ad. So if you got an extraordinary thought for the ordinary mind that you want everyone else to hear, then go to Anchor. Alright, what's going on, everybody? It's that ordinary podcast with extraordinary thoughts that tells you to stop being great and be extraordinary. And we're back with another episode of Extraordinary Thoughts for the Ordinary Minds. So just like Friday and the Friday before that and the Friday before that, I asked for the thoughts and I got so many of them. And this time I got to ask, let's talk about depression. Let's talk about relationships in the military. Let's talk about regret. But one topic that has came up no matter what the situation is, and I can guarantee you that I'll see this topic again, is toxic leadership. Now, if you remember, in episode 5, I did a segment on toxic leadership. And I became a fan of doing part 2s to episodes, because initially I felt like, I shouldn't have to do a part 2. I got that thought out. I shouldn't have to talk about it again. But what I have learned is that I'm in a different mental state with each episode that I do. I can guarantee you right now, if I talk about letting go, I'm going to talk about it in a different manner because of the mental state that I'm currently in. Now, when you go back to my very first episodes, that was me finding my sound. And I didn't really find, and there's always room to grow, but I didn't really find how I was supposed to talk or how to articulate my words properly in a podcast until episode 7. I think. So when toxic leadership first came out, I hit it, yeah. I knocked it out the park. But when I listened to it, there's definitely things I wish I would have talked about. There's things that I wish I would have said in there that I didn't get a chance to talk about then. So with no further ado, welcome to Toxic Leadership Part 2. Now, as I increase my presence, and what I mean by increase my presence, I'm putting up videos, I'm putting out more episodes to the podcast, I'm creating my website almost, I even have business cards made. My presence has started to increase. And one place that it's starting to increase more of is social media. I remember there was a time I would go, I'll say 3 months, 6 months, 5 months, won't even post anything on Facebook. But because of the things that I'm starting to post, it's starting to get shared. It's starting to get viewed. It's starting to circulate its way around the internet. And because of the community that I am in, the community is so small, it tends to get back to people that I have not seen in years. So I've received an influx of leadership from my past that I've been happy to hear from. Yes, I've been happy to hear from everybody. I'm glad that you're doing good. I've also received an influx of leadership that I have tried my best to look past from, essentially. And the reason why I try to look past from it and not forget them is because I always want to remember what they did and how they made me feel. But I never want to dwell on it. I never want to hold on to it, essentially. So this episode, it kind of hits a little bit different because of the mental state that it's going to put me in. When I first talked about toxic leadership, I talked about that leader that had those narcissistic tendencies that can't even see past the fact that his shit does stink. I talked about that leader that is the reason why his entire platoon, everybody can't stand them. You know, that leader that wants to be a leader only when it's convenient for him. The platoon's been here since 06, but for some reason you showing up at 09. I talked about you. I talked about the guy that's constantly that roadblock in your life. I talked about them. But my mental state has changed. Because one thing that I had to learn is that person, I actually learned a lot from that person. Everything that person wasn't is what I am now. Everything that he did wrong is what I try to ensure that I do right now. So what more is it to toxic leadership? As we peel back the onion and we see the different layers, what more is it? And when I started to get those messages, and what really bothered me the most was it's hey, you're doing good. I remember you as a junior Marine. And I am so happy that I was able to help you along this journey. Hey, you're doing good. I'm glad that I had a part in your life. You're doing good. I'm so happy that I was able to inspire you or help you become the Marine that you are today. That's the leader that I want to talk about. I want to talk about you a little bit. I want to talk about your lack of presence and how you are showing up to the game now. I want to talk about how you did not show up to practice all this time, but for some reason you think you got a spot on the starting lineup in my life for some reason. That's who I want to talk about. See, a lot of people think that toxic leader is that obnoxious guy in your platoon that's constantly making mistakes, but they don't realize it. Yeah, that's it. But we so quick to say that, oh, so-and-so slipped through the cracks. So who poured it? Who laid it out? Who's the one that developed the structure that allowed this person to slip through the cracks? See, we so quick to talk about how so-and-so, how this person got promoted, how this person has made it this far in their career, how this person is doing this, why we're so upset about why so-and-so is getting promoted, but for some reason, we don't want to blame the person that has allowed it to happen. That's the real toxic leader. You know, the one that turned a blind eye while you were going through all that adversity? You know, the one that said that, oh, I got these problems going in my life, but for some reason I cannot help you. And don't get me wrong, I get it. I get it. We all got all problems in our life. We got all types of personal problems in our life. But I'm a strong believer in that as long as I'm getting paid in full, then my actions will be paid in full. That as long as on the 1st and the 15th, that my money is right, that I'm getting paid a full amount, then guess what? Them other days, them 365 days, everybody will get a paid in full actions out of me. That no matter what the situation is, and I feel like it takes a certain type of person. It takes a certain type of person to be able to look you in your eye. Know they got some personal problems going on in their life, but they so much of a coward. They so much of a coward that they can't tell you I have something going on in my life as well, that I need to push you to somebody else that can better help you, because I know that I am not going to be able to give you the energy that you truly deserve. They can't look you in the face. They can't look somebody in the face because they're afraid of conflict and tell them, I know that's wrong, and I think that's something that we should not do. Your lack of presence is what made you toxic in my life. The fact that I believed in you, but you were not there to help me, is what made you toxic in my life. And I understand we have personal problems. In fact, you can pull anybody off to the side and you can find out how deep their personal problems go. But it's a certain level of accountability within yourself that you must have when you say that you're going to lead somebody. And when I'm talking about leadership, I'm not just talking about in the workplace. I'm talking about in your household. I'm talking about the people that you encounter. It's a certain level of accountability that you must have within yourself to understand whether or not you're even going to be able to give that person that energy from the assignments that you take. If your plate is already full, you need to be able to say, I cannot take it. If you know that you are not capable of leading Marines, if you're not capable of leading a household, if you are not capable of helping somebody, then don't step in front and say that you will. And I know we've all seen this before. You worked your ass off this entire time. In fact, that you grind it out. After everybody told you that you couldn't do it. You felt alone even while you were in a room full of people. You've never put in so much work, and as you make it to the top, now all of a sudden these people, they coming out of the woodwork to tell you how proud they were. I can't believe that you made it. I get it. We all a fan of an underdog story. I get that. But where were you? Where were you when I cried at night and wondered if my moment was gonna come? Where were you when I grinded it out and I honed my skills and I perfected my craft? Where were you to help me along the way? That silence tells me everything. I can dive deep and I can always talk about how the credit that you are claiming to have is not yours. But let's switch gears. Because the further I talk about this, the more I talk about this, I allow that bitterness to eat up at my soul. And guess what I become? A toxic leader. I become the toxic leader because now that pain that I have, that wound that is still open, has become infected now. Because I have allowed that hate to dwell within me. And because I have allowed that hate to dwell within me, now I have trickled that down to my Junior Marines, and their Junior Marines are going to pass that to their Junior Marines. That hate that is dwelling within me because of your lack of presence in my life, that lack of, you thought that you were a leader, but you could not help me throughout this transition and help me become a better person. I have allowed that to get infected, and I have passed that down to everyone that I have encountered. Let's move past that a little bit. Because the further we talk about it, the likelihood of you becoming that toxic leader now. So let's forgive. And I know that's a crazy thing to say, right? Say it. I forgive. I forgive you for not being there. I forgive you for not being the leader that you thought that you was. I forgive you because I understand that you have personal problems in your life, and it does take some form of accountability. It does take some form of courage that you did not possess to help me. Matter of fact, you didn't probably even know how to deal with it. You probably had just got promoted the day that you had met me. So you were still learning as you go. I understand. I forgive you. I forgive you because I can't allow that to become me. I can't. It's so easy to get caught up in what bad leadership was. It's so easy. In fact, I have seen some of the best Marines get caught up in that whirlwind of dwelling on the leadership that they did not have, that they refused to become the leader that they were supposed to be. And you know, you have heard me say, be the leader that you were supposed to be. Be the person that you needed the most. And it was because of your lack of presence. Because you did not want to say anything during adversity that I remembered that and became the person that I am today. Because believe it or not, all leadership has some part to play in your life, whether it's good or bad. Whether it's that leader that has pushed you to your point and told you to keep going, that said, I got leaders right now that had grabbed me up, snatched me up, and told me to shut my mouth once, listen more. I've had also leaders that have allowed me to talk myself into a hole and didn't say anything. I've learned from both. I've allowed this hate sometimes to dwell within me to the point where I have passed up opportunities to become a good friend with somebody. I've allowed that hate to fester so deep within me that I can't even see past the problem of what they did to me, that we can't even grow from it. To the point where I felt like you disrespected the leaders that actually played a part in my life the moment that you came up. So as we dive deeper into this, because trust me, there's a little bit deeper into this episode, I want you to understand, first and foremost, forgive. Forgive that leader for his lack of leadership. Because of his lack of leadership, you are the leader that you are today. And if that resonates, then we already know that we did something right. Let's dive into what a good leader is. Let's dive into it. Let's ensure that that's the path that we on right now. Let's make sure that we a good leader, right? I have leaders right now that I don't even talk to. Good leaders. In fact, these people, I look up to them. I don't even talk to them every single day. But they know exactly how I'm moving. They'll hit me up every now and then, and they'll come back and they'll talk to me. We ain't got to talk all the time. It's the impact that they laid out. I remember, and you know what's crazy is because I remember when I first picked up corporal and I got my first fire team. We had a staff sergeant. He lined up all the corporals, lined up all the fire team leaders. And he went up to each one of them. And he asked them, what? And he was playing this. It was a sign of if you were doing your job. He said, tell me something about your Marines that I don't know. Went to the first person. Each of us have 4 people in our fire team. First person didn't know. He went to the second person. Second person knew 2 things about the guys, but he didn't know the other 2 about the other ones. As he got down to me, I rattled off things about my Marines that I could not even believe that I knew. And I want you to understand the reason why I was able to rattle all those things off and to talk about it is because of the active conversations that I had. Because one thing that I had to learn because of my toxic leadership that I had as a junior Marine, because of their lack of presence, because of the loneliness that I felt as a junior Marine, that feeling of being in a room full of people, but for some reason you feel alone, you feel like you still by yourself, that regardless of how many mandatory fun days that I was a part of, I still found myself away from everybody else because I felt like deep down I just did not fit in, and I felt like as a puzzle piece I would try to force my way in. That I developed this communication style to talk to my Marines. That I had to be able to articulate and be able to come to a common agreement of where we from. How is your day going? Who is your wife? How many kids do you have? Where are you from exactly? Like, you say you're from this place, but where exactly is it? We need to have a conversation because I don't want you to feel like that. And it's crazy because I was able to answer that question because of the toxic leadership that I had. I really want you to understand that the leader that you are now is because of the past. And just because it happened to you, and I know we live by that mentality that because it happened to me, it can happen to you. We praise ourselves on that struggle. We praise ourselves on the struggles that we have overcome. We have praised ourselves over the sickness that we beat. And we say things like, because it happened to me, it can happen to you. It happened to me, I made it. So then it will happen to you. But we forget that because it happened to me, it won't happen to you. That in my very nature and the idea that it's to gain intelligence and pass down, I can assure that it won't happen to you. And I always think to myself, and this is definitely a double-edged sword, is the emotional investment that I put within each person that I can encounter. I put that emotional investment within each person I encountered because there was no emotional investment put into me. When you succeed, I succeed. And the reason why I feel like I succeed because I watched you grow. I watched you face those problems, and I remember being with you every step of the way because I told you that I was not going to leave your side. So to see you, I promise you, I will not be in that light. I will not be there as you hold that trophy. I just want to just sit back and say to myself, dang, we did that. We did that. I ain't going to lie. And it's just the emotional investment that I have. And it's because there was none invested in me. I always get upset about the leadership that I did not have, and I fail to realize that it's because of the leadership that I did not have that has allowed me to become the person that I am today. Because they did not invest in me is the reason why I'm willing to invest everything in you. Because I can see your potential. And I wish that they would have saw mine. As you become the leader that you are destined to be, I can only sit back and be left in awe. I can only sit back and be left with a smile on my face, because I know how hard you worked to get to this point. And I feel like it took a long time for me to understand that, because as I encountered each toxic leader that was in my life, with each moment that they see a video of me talking, or they see me do something in McMap, they hear about me, they hear my name, I get so irritated, because they try to come back in my life and I remember the investment that they lacked. It isn't their fault. And I refuse to hold any more emotional attachment to it. Because as I realized, you taught me something. You taught me something. What I want you to understand as we close this episode out is that we all gonna have some form of toxic leadership. If you haven't felt it now, you're gonna feel it later. And you can allow it to dwell within you. In fact, you can allow it to fester, let it take form. But the leader that you lacked, the person that was not there for you, as you clawed your way up to the top and you felt like your moment was never going to come, and as you sit now to reap the benefits of your success, to reap the fruits of your labor, how can you truly enjoy your meal if you constantly sitting there looking around at the people that wasn't at the table? Trust me, them people not in the house to begin with. Use the toxic to use the poison that was put in your life to create the anti-venom that you have now. The good leader that you want to become, use the toxic people that left some form of an impact on your life.